an intelligence, kind of a disembodied, free-floating intelligence, if you would. It's like intelligence
that cares a lot about you.
Yeah.
Right. That's right.
But my response is that intelligence is really a measure of the function of the brain and necessarily contingent upon a brain being present, much like, if you would, you can't have color without light.
Correct.
You can't have intelligence without a brain. And I just wondered what your comments were about that.
I actually have a caller on YouTube. There's like a clip on YouTube where we took a call and somebody asked, like they said that they believed that God was disembodied intelligence, and I said, where have you ever seen intelligence without a brain or something to that effect? And he said, I never have. And I said, then why are you saying this?
Right.
What else can you say? Why are you making something up that you know does not align with reality? I don't know why a person would say such a thing.
Yeah, and even in the computer world, you can make the analogy that the computer is like a brain, and it's making decisions.
And the other thing that makes me angry about that,
it's the same sort of thing. Yeah.
They will use this. They'll say something about, you know, God is intelligent, and then you say, and you'll be like, oh, okay, let's say, you know, you have no concept of God. They come to you, they say, you know, you tell me, what's your God model? Well, my God is intelligent. Okay, so then you make assumptions, like you're saying. You have this assumption. There's a brain. And the person starts talking, and they're like, well, but there, you know, it's all spiritual. It's like, well, what is spirit? Well, it's like not material. Well, you're saying there's a non-material, I don't know about what is a non-material brain. And they're like, they get angry and say that you know, it's like, well, you know what God is. And it's like, no, because what you're describing makes no sense. It's like telling me that you have a chair at home that's made of wood. And I say, oh, what kind of tree? And they say, oh, it did come from a tree. Okay, well, I don't know what kind of wood doesn't come from a tree. So at that point, I don't know what the word means anymore, because you just castrated the definition to the point where it no longer means what I understand it to mean. And it's the same thing with this intelligence. When you're saying that it's disembodied intelligence, that it exists non-materially without any kind of a brain, it's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And if you can't explain it, don't expect me to respond to intelligence as though I understand it when you start taking away all the components that make it have any meaning.
Right. And I find that in many cases it does come down to the definition, but people or theists have never really thought about that before, and having them think about that can be a valuable lesson.
I agree.
Right.
Well,
okay,
yeah.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, certainly one of the ways to have a lot of frustration is to have a debate with somebody where you don't agree on the definitions, right? And sometimes with these woo-woo words like spirit and these sorts of things, you might as well start there. And if you can't get that far, then you're hosed.
But it's frustrating when they use a definition that you are familiar with, and then partway through you find they're using it in a way that is completely unfamiliar, that has nothing to do with like the familiar definition.
Right.
And you're like, wait a minute, I understood this. I said I understood this word, and that word comes with baggage, with real world baggage that you want to dump, and then still say that this exists. And it's like, no, that baggage has to come with it, or the word means nothing.
Right.
I mean,
right. Or invent a new word for the sake of this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, if I told somebody, you know, intelligence, and I said, well, for example, this pen has intelligence, it's like, what am I talking about? I mean, what do I mean? Now you're wondering, what do I mean? You would start getting confused and saying, do you mean the kind of intelligence that, I mean, are you thinking this pen is thinking? I mean, that's what you would wonder. And until I explain that I didn't think that, I mean, if I do say that I think it is thinking, then comes the question, where the hell's the brain? Right. I mean, what is the capacity for this pen to think? And what is the capacity for nothing to think?
It's in the ballpoint for sure. I don't know.
Retractable.
Okay.
Retract that statement. Okay.
Okay. All right, let's go on to Julie in Brooklyn, New York, another New York caller. Hello.
Hey, it's In Your Face New Yorker from RichardDawkins.net.
Oh, awesome.
I just wanted to talk about the whole thing with the mosque and the Islamic Center near Ground Zero.
I'm sure you've heard way too much about it by now up there in New York, right?
Oh,
yeah. I mean, I'm personally against it. I think it's disrespectful. However, I don't think it's the government's place to, like, say, no, you can't do this. I would hope that the people who want to build it would say, hey, you know what, this is disrespectful. But the big thing I want to talk about is how people are completely, like programmed to play the racist card every time you talk about it. For example, like, I was debating with somebody online, and even though I said, look, I would be against somebody building a church next to a bombed abortion clinic, I would actually think a better idea would be to build an Arab cultural center because, you know, if you really want to tackle racism, we need to separate the whole thing that, like, oh, Arabs are automatically Muslims. Like, when there was that blackout in New York City in 2003, this one person in my neighborhood thought it was a terrorist attack, and she's like, oh, those fucking Arabs shouldn't be living here. You know, I was really upset about that. It's like, so, you know, again, I was debating this person online, despite, like, telling her, and this was somebody I used to work at a summer camp with, despite telling her, like, you know, how I felt about, like, the, you know, a church next to an abortion clinic, and how I felt about, you know, how I think an Arab cultural center would be a better idea. She kept coming back to, oh, you know, you don't have your consciousness raised, you know, it's brown people and blah blah blah, and you have these biases, and no matter what, it was like that interview where Richard Dawkins was debating Wendy Wright. Like, no matter what he said to her, she just came back with the same response over and over again.
Yeah, like talking past each other, sure.
And it was just ridiculous. And if anything, I think people who are responding like that, it's like they think you can't possibly criticize Islam without criticizing the dominant race. And I think Richard Dawkins really nailed it in the post he put on the forum when he said, if anything, it's another kind of racism because you're being patronizing. You can't, it's like you can't put down somebody's religion if they're the wrong color because, like, oh, you know, those poor people of that color, they can't handle it. But hey, if they're white, you can say whatever you want.
Well, there is a little bit of that going on with Judaism, where, you know, you can't criticize maybe the U.S. foreign policy with respect to Israel, which is a little bit weird. Let's just be honest here. It's a little bit weird. You can't criticize them without being called anti-Semitic.
I'll be the first to criticize Israel. I mean, I like Israel, but I like it in the same way I like Australia. I'm not like, you know, oh, I love Israel, you know, my homeland. It's, you know, it's like any other country. It's done good things, it's done bad things, and there's been wrongdoing on both sides with Israelis and the Palestinians. You know, it's not all one-sided.
Sure. And I guess a lot of people don't realize that Islam is a very big religion. I mean, Indonesia in Asia is one of the biggest Muslim countries, and there's lots of Muslims in Africa and all over. So. Yeah, a lot of diversity there that we're not sort of admitting to.
Well, and I think it is a little bit sad because I think what muddies the waters is that a lot of times people who are racist glom on to things like this, and they do bring race into it. And it's an unfortunate thing because you can't have a higher level of dialogue when you have an idiot that keeps bringing it down. To some weird, to either a racist or a violent level, and you're going, you know, we're trying to talk about this here.
Well, there's this whole xenophobic idea in our culture right now. You know, especially you see it with the immigrants, especially the illegal immigrants.
Sure.
And there's just a lot of these cards being played lately, and it's just kind of disconcerting. It's kind of sad.
Yeah.
That you know we you know, in my mind, we have this potential as a country to be a great country, and we're missing out on this potential.
Well, what I found interesting to kind of clarify with your point, what I found interesting was that a lot of accusations were going around that nobody criticizes Christianity like this, which was kind of funny because when they set up the Quran burning, you saw loads of criticism against Christianity. But I mean, I'm looking at it and I'm going, wow, we get letters all the time saying, why do you always harp on Christianity over every other religion? You're just always slamming Christianity. and then when this, you know, this stuff with the whatever they call it, the cultural center, the mosque, whatever, in New York, there was all these accusations that nobody's criticizing Christianity ever. You know, nobody ever holds Christianity account for violence, and I'm going, wow. I mean, only the Christians don't hold it to account for what it does. Everybody else does. I mean, we sure do.
We sure do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're equal opportunity anti-theists.
And the other thing is, like, this girl that I was debating with, she's like, oh, you know, I have friends that are Muslims and they're all peaceful, and I'm like, yeah, they're peaceful people. It has nothing to do with their religion. It's because, you know, they're not fundamentalists. They're, you know, they're just cherry picking.
Well, someone asked me, there was a poll, I think it was on Austin Klein's site at about.com, Atheism, and he had a question that was, is Islam a religion of peace or a religion of violence? And he just let people answer. And I posted a comment there, and I said, it's difficult to answer that because I don't know how to judge the religion. If I judge by the book, it's a religion of violence. If I judge by the majority of adherents, it's probably a religion of peace.
If you judge by the news.
If I judge by, well, if I judge by the adherents that actually do what the book says, then again, it's a religion of violence. So I don't know quite how to gauge it, because what is the measure of a religion? Is it what most of the adherents do, or is it what most of the adherents say they should do? Because most of them, I think, whether they're moderate or not, will say the holy book is holy.
Yeah, well, I think what it comes down to is what the book says, and it's like,
too.
If this is what the Lord your God is saying, then who are you to change it? I mean, in some weird way, I have more respect for the fundamentalists.
The Bible has a lot of that stuff in there too.
And I hold Christians to account for that. And the problem is, if you're not going to say that it's wrong, then as far as I'm concerned, you agree with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like when Richard Dawkins says, "What is the penalty for apostasy?" What do you tell? And they just keep dodging the question.
It's beautiful. That's a beautiful video.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Julie. Anything else?
I believe that's it.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much for your call.
Bye.
Okay, that was 3 drop. Okay, we've got Matt from Greene, Ohio. Welcome, Matt. You're on the air.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey, I just wanted to say I'm a real big fan of your show, and I was watching in a couple of callers back, I'm not sure how many, he was talking about reincarnation, and I don't believe in reincarnation, but I believe I have a most plausible theory of how that would occur.
Okay, so let me get this straight. You don't believe in it, but you have a plausible
He's doing a hypothetical.
theory for why it might work?
I'm agnostic to it.
Okay, all right. All right, lay it on us. Go for it.
Well, it's going to be hard to explain.
That's all right. Take a deep breath and...
I'm a bit nervous. It's my first time calling in
no
anymore.
problem, no problem. Just think we're in the room and we're just friends, just chit-chatting.
We're all just people here.
We're all just people.
Well, I believe that after you die, it's the law of conservation of mass, so your atoms and energy are preserved and recycled. And eventually, though, albeit in a different form, it is possible that your non-living life could be recycled and somehow produced into living life.
Okay. Well,
I think
at one sense it is, right? In the sense of energy in the physics sense, you know, of heat and light and these sorts of things, not the woo-woo psychic, you know.
Yeah, I mean, to say that somebody's mind
energy
can somehow
sort of
come back is a little bit different, yeah.
You know, so yes, matter and energy are, you know, we break down, the worms chew us up, whatever, you know, and we become part of our elements and things become reused because we're sitting around and other living forms suck them up and use them. So in that sense, we are reincarnated. But you mean something more than that, right? You mean that our identities and our memories and these sorts of things are potentially preserved?
No, not at all.
Okay.
What I was getting at is that you don't necessarily retain your memories or any of that, but that you could, in essence, become alive again somehow.
Well, yeah, it's like you're materially recycled.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think you are.
That's not too controversial.
That you might regain some consciousness in some living form.
Some of your atoms or whatever may go into
this whole notion of what is you, though, is I think the heart of the problem here.
Yeah,
right?
we're talking about a material existence, I think, not a mind. We're not talking about the brain concept of mind, right?
Well, if you are the sum of every atom that's ever sort of been associated with your body,
right,
then yes. But if you is something that we normally think of as an identity,
right,
then no. Right? Are you with us there, or does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree with you.
Okay. Yeah, then I think you're correct. I don't even think that's, like Dawn said, I don't even think that's controversial. I think you're correct.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Just acknowledging.
Yeah. But I would avoid the word reincarnation in that case, because a lot of folks, a lot of these words are intentionally vague and intentionally bring a lot of baggage with them.
Yeah. I would say metaphorical. It's kind of metaphorical the way he's using it.
Right. Yeah.
Because people will say I'm reincarnated, that you rise again in your children, for example. I actually have a song that's about that, that's on my iPod, that you go on, your genes go on in your kids.
Well, yeah.
And I mean, but yeah, that's not exactly what, to use reincarnation to describe that, you would have to label it as a metaphor, because it is very different